Hi, and welcome to today's episode of the Retirement Readiness Podcast. Joining me today is Nick Becker, owner of Aspire Gymnastics out in Joliet, Illinois. And today's episode is going to be all about kind of a combination of things. What does health insurance look like when you get retirement? But really, what does health look like? Can you really call it health insurance when it really just kind of takes care of sick people? So we look forward to having this conversation today with me and Nick. So Nick, welcome. First time on the show.
Long time listener.
Yeah.
First time on the show.
I can't say that it's been a long time since I've seen you. It's been maybe Christmas or Thanksgiving, and we see each other fairly regular, being my cousin and all. So we should probably let people know that little disclaimer. If you're wondering, as you're watching and see the video, obviously all the good looking genes fell on my side of the equation. So Nick, as we talk about healthcare, health insurance, that kind of stuff, a lot of times as people start getting closer to retirement, we start thinking about, this picture. I heard somebody talk about it where it's like I hit 50, maybe 55, and I just start this slow, gradual decline until I die at like 82. And I find it kind of like funny that it's called healthcare when it really only treats you when you're sick. And so I thought maybe today we could talk a little bit about what's it mean to be healthy and to have healthcare versus sick care. So tell me a little bit, what are some of the things that you practice? Some of the stuff that right now I know is hot is like, this fasting and, cold plunges and all that kind of stuff. Kind of what's your journey? Where have you been?
So I've been kind of all over the spectrum. I was an athlete in college, Division I. And then when I left that, going from training 20 hours a week to not, it went the opposite way. Getting way out of shape, eating too much, drinking too much, the wrong lifestyle, and feeling lethargic. So again, not a doctor, but the ketogenic diet is where you're dropping your sugars, your carbs as close to zero as you can. You're going to get them even if you think you're not. But where your body stops burning sugars and carbohydrates and you're burning the fat. So as long as you regulate that diet, it's going to use the fat that you already have on your body, which then you start getting your mental clarity feels better. And that really opened up like, oh, there's something to this. I feel better. And not just because I was losing weight, but everything felt better.
And so like again, we're like we talked about maybe a little bit before, we're not doctors, right? So kind of just put that disclaimer out there. Everybody's doing this. Like we're just talking about things that have worked for us or things that we played around with. And so things that I've read though, whether you're looking at like reading things from Aspire or you've got Peter Attia or like all these people that got tons of books out on this stuff now. My understanding of it is like your body's going to burn the most readily available energy or the fastest burning energy first. And so when I eat carbs, those are converted into sugar basically. And that sugar is way easier to burn, way faster to burn. And so then if I'm just kind of put some of the thought behind it, if I'm understanding right, if you have an excess of that, your body converts those into fat, which then are these ketones that are then stored throughout your body. And so by stopping the carb intake and the sugar intake, that allows your body to say, oh, well, I don't have that readily available energy anymore. Now let me jump in and start burning these ketones that have been stored up, which is where keto comes from. Am I thinking about that?
Yep, you nailed it.
Right. And so like when you talk about mental clarity, what do you mean? Like what happens?
Man, it's almost like my brain was in a fog where memories would take a little longer to process, or words even that I was going to say. I'm like, what was that word again? And then it's kind of like someone blew a fan in there and then unfogged it, and then things were coming a little clearer, a little faster. Didn't feel quite as dense.
Saying a lot.
Anyone
right?
that knows me,
yeah. And so then give me a sense in what other diets have you tried? Well, I guess even with the keto diet, do I have to do that like strict for a period of time? Can I bounce back and forth? Like how does that even work?
So when I first did it, it was like 90 days completely strict, adding, fat into coffee and all different kinds of oils, really healthy butter and ghee, and just really maintaining really high fat, low calories for 90 days. Once I did that, then I kind of cycled off and kind of went normal and then went back onto it. And once my body got kind of used to going in between burning fats and burning carbs, then I can kind of jump into it now a lot faster and my body's ready for it. People will talk about like the keto flu,
Mm-hmm.
and it really is just your body switching over and just not kind of being ready for what's happening. And once you kind of do it strict first, then you don't have that anymore, or it feels a lot better.
And so, like, if I think about that, or some of the stuff I've read, they talk about being metabolically kind of diverse, and I almost think about it like a portfolio where you wouldn't put all your eggs or all of your money into like one stock. And so, like from a metabolism standpoint, and really kind of looking at how your pancreas functions and your insulin secretion, all that kind of stuff, that kind of is a way to diversify your body as well, right? Kind of, if I'm thinking about that,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And then age too. I mean, I'm in my lower 40s.
You
If you're,
can't say that anymore. Mid 40s.
we're gonna say lower 40s.
I guess what, until you hit 45, you can say lower 40s. Is that what is that?
That's what I'm going with.
That's the theory. All right.
Everyone's a little different. Your body at 20 years old can jump in and out of things a lot faster. At 60, it might be a little harder. I'm definitely everyone's got to kind of play with their own.
Yeah. So it's crazy how you kind of talk about uh, this sedentary lifestyle that everybody's leading and just lack of steps, lack of movement. And, I was just reading somewhere where they're talking about that's like the new smoking, and all the effects that has on so many different things, whether it be the way you process uh, your sugars and how your body kind of regenerates itself, and the Krebs cycle, and, just all these things that has to do with. Uh, so tell me a little bit about you. Like, what's your normal routine? Like, how do you keep active and stay in shape? I know you're talking about taking longer walks. What's all that look like?
Um, so I get up before the boys go to school, get them up, get them breakfast. I'm fasted. I'm not eating breakfast with them. I'll do hydrogen water. Then I'll go do my workout, which is about an hour right now, unfasted.
And what does that look like?
Full body workout, not trying to like build muscle or get crazy, but trying to make sure that I'm using every part of my body for the workouts right now. I'm right at 205 pounds, which is about where I want to stay, 200 to 210. Once I start getting over 210, I know I've got to change something up. After my workout, then I will take the dog for a walk with my wife. Probably about 2 miles is the general goal we're trying to hit, in a very easy pace, keeping the heart rate up, but not in a calisthenical kind of way at all.
Yeah. And so when you talk about kind of that fasted state, what's that look like, or what do you mean by that?
So I do right now, and again, I'll say mid 40s. I don't like saying that. But I'm doing 16 hours where I am not eating or drinking anything with any kind of sugars in it. So I'll do water or black coffee.
Yep.
And then 8-hour eating window. I work in the evenings, so my first meal is about 2 o'clock. That gives me, if I have to eat something right before 10 o'clock, where my day is ending at 9, I can get something in before 10 o'clock.
Yeah, and so I hear about that a lot. That's that's like the 16-8 program, right? And so, why do you fast? What are some of the benefits to fasting?
A lot when we look at, again, not me, smarter people than me that are looking at this, the aging process is really your cells not multiplying as fast as they did. So you're killing more cells than you're producing. And that's where the aging comes in. When you do this fasting cycle, your cells are not dying off as fast, and they're starting to multiply faster than they would if you're constantly eating.
Well, and did I read somewhere where it helps your body to even clean up like some of the dead cells that are floating around in there and that kind of stuff too?
Inflammation, all the kind of stuff that you kind of don't even notice. People are walking around with inflammation in their gut, and they don't know until they don't have it. And they're like, "Oh my, this is what I'm supposed to feel like."
Yeah,
and that's kind of what you're feeling in that fasted state. And a lot of times, if it's mixed with keto, you got to kind of remind yourself to eat. Like I'll get home after not eating, and I don't need to eat, but I'm like, I probably should. I don't want to lose weight right now, so
Yep.
then I got to kind of fuel myself.
I don't think I've ever had that issue. This guy likes to eat, and so talk a little bit about, if you would, some of the other stuff that I've seen. Like you and I were just talking, I don't know, a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, about like hormone replacement. You were telling me like, man, changed my life. I'm 4 weeks in on my testosterone replacement. Like, let's talk about that a little bit. How does that affect lifestyle?
Yeah. So I didn't think I was low. I got tested and I was on the very low end. And then I was thinking about it. I'm like, any test I take, I don't want to be at the bottom. Your
Yeah.
kid's not gonna come from school and be like, good job, you're
Yeah.
in the very bottom of your class.
Yes.
You're doing fantastic.
Way to be, kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, as when the doctor was like, "Yo, you're fine," and I'm like, "Well, that doesn't seem fine." So then, when I started researching it more, I'm like, "Well, that's not fine. You don't want to be at the lowest end." And then all the negative things that come in being on that lower end, which I didn't even, I didn't know until I got out of the lower end.
Yep.
I was fatigued all the time. Having to take a nap. Like I haven't taken a nap since I was a child. Why do I feel like I need to take a nap at 2 o'clock? Um, excess hunger, like getting hungry, getting hangry. I'm like, I've never been like a mad person when not eating, but man, when
Now I
my
am.
testosterone was
Yeah.
low, I certainly was. Um,
Which is so crazy because like that's like my exact story too, right? Which is what prompted us to have that conversation where it's like for probably I'm guessing 5 years. I every time I go in for my annual blood work, my see my doc, it was the same thing. I'm like, are you sure my testosterone's right? Because I'm seeing differences, I'm seeing changes. Like I'm more lethargic. I'm like have this slow, gradual weight gain that's not good, healthy weight gain. Like I just go through this whole like list of things and same thing, they're like, oh no, you're within range. uh but then I go and talk to somebody who's like who does this, who knows a little bit more about it, like, yeah, you're within range, but you're sitting right now where we would expect a 70-year-old person to be. Well, yeah, my not that I had a grandpa that I remember, but if I did, I picture him at 70 sitting on the couch snacking and falling asleep in his chair, right?
yeah,
I don't picture him out running a mile or something, right? And so it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense now why your body's like that.
yeah.
And so I've seen a huge difference just in the first 4 weeks. And how long have you been?
So I've been on almost a year. And the other thing that it's like the popping out of bed in the morning. I was always kind of a morning person, and then I started not becoming that morning person.
Yep.
And now again, it's like the alarm goes off, I'm able to just jump up and get moving.
Yeah.
Like I've been up. There's no snooze. There's no having to like work myself to get up, which is just a great feeling again.
Well, and there too, you talked earlier about, some of uh these kind of historic studies that were done around, hey, you should be in this low fat, this causes this, and really a lot of it goes back to, when you're eating, how many sugars are you consuming and that kind of stuff, which wasn't really done. And a lot of those previous studies have been kind of debunked. It's similar to kind of hormone replacement and testosterone replacement, right? I mean, there were some studies that were done that really were not very accurate, were not very scientifically done, and it's caused like this whole kind of divergent in what could be a healthy lifestyle, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then I kind of like look at Sylvester Stallone. I mean, that's my canary in the coal
Sly.
mine.
Hey, we'll have to tag him on our thing. I'm sure he listens to the podcast,
Yeah.
so he'll.
But I mean, the guy's almost 80 years old.
Yep.
And he's doing action films, and like, okay, that guy's clearly on testosterone replacement, and he's still living the life I would love to be looking like at 80.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and well, I think we talked a little bit about longevity and wanting to live. For me, live to 123. And when I think about that, I honestly think about, so if my kids start having kids like when they're 30, and every 30 years they start having kids, it's very likely that I could see my great great grandchildren if I could see 123. And it would be pretty cool in my mind if at 90 I should have great grandkids that are probably 10, 11, 12 years old at that point in time. If I could be out water skiing with them, or that bike riding, doing any of that kind of stuff, it seems really cool. And so it's like, if I'm already at 46, starting to feel lethargic, starting to, how am I ever going to make it to 90 doing that kind of stuff? And it just, if I don't have to, right?
Yeah. And then even, I mean, take it back a notch. How many fathers are out there with their young kids that don't have the energy to play with them like you would want to?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're thinking grandkids, great grandkids, but I'm just looking at, I mean, there were times I'm on the couch and my kids want to play with me, and I'm like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
And so,
Daddy needs nappy time.
yeah. Pop's tired. Let's leave him alone.
Come on. And so we're kind of covering all kinds of stuff. We're talking about, how do you stay active? How do you move? Just getting out, doing that couple mile walk every day, uh, making sure that you're eating in a balanced way, making sure you have some variety there, and maybe trying some different things. Maybe you try fasting and intermittent fasting type of stuff. talking about some hormone replacement stuff. What is this stuff I'm hearing about, like red light therapy and cold water plunges? I went to cold showers in the morning, changed my life. Best thing in the world. Our water, I measured it. So our water out of the tap, if I let it get cold, at least right now, it's coming out around 44 degrees.
Oh,
And it's like, it seems crazy, but it's after 2 minutes of being in there, it is outstanding. So tell me, like, what's your journey been like? Have you done any of that stuff or?
so in in college, we always had to do ice baths. I was a floor and vault guy, so always on my legs.
So floor and vault in
In
gymnastics.
gymnastics. Sorry, and then we would have to do ice baths after every single practice for the guys that use their legs like that. And the training I got from the people that were smarter than me were that the cold water releases cold shock therapy, so your blood is kind of healing itself fast at a faster rate, and then even when you get out of it, it'll stay working for hours
And
after.
some of that is that some of the stuff I've read, like it's like as you hit that cold water, all the blood starts to come to your core, so it almost gets like super oxygenated, super like you said, it kind of refreshes it all a little bit, and then as it goes back out into your limbs as you warm up, like it's been cleaned in a sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then the mental that comes out of it too, like it's almost like a high. You just like you did a drug, a natural drug that was actually good for your body.
Yeah.
And you feel good after. I mean, for hours after, you're almost like euphoric. It'll have you. Someone can cut you off, and instead of flipping them off, which I would never do because I'm a good Christian, but I've seen you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get so worked up so
Yep.
fast.
Yeah, well, and the thing that's crazy about that, it just as I've gone through and read about some of those things, is it doesn't even take a lot, right? I mean, it could literally be,
A minute. I mean, yeah.
yeah, sitting in there and just getting used to it. And they talk about what, like sub 50 degrees.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Huberman, he kind of does 48 degrees because he can be in there a little longer. He'll take it to 15 minutes. As you go lower than that, you're not going to be in there for 15 minutes.
For sure. Well, and then I mean, you get really crazy because then they got like all these baths that like churn the water so that you don't build like that warm layer around your body and stuff. Like it's a crazy thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've got an employee that he made an ice bath out of an old freezer, and it's cold. I mean, ice cubes. He's got to break the ice cubes to go in there every morning. So that's at a different level.
Which from what I hear, you got to be really careful with that, right? Because there's people getting
shocked.
shocked and stuff. Like,
yeah. You might want to invest into a real rig at this point.
You get a little more than you bargained for there. And so then as I think about that stuff, if I start kind of adding it up, it really has a pretty dramatic shift in how you're feeling and what your outlook looks like.
Well, and then it all gets like tied in hand. If you're doing all this preventive maintenance stuff and you're feeling good, you're not going to reach for that cookie. You're feeling good. If you've done all the work, you're not going to want to put that in your body. But when you're not doing that stuff, the cycle just gets pretty easy to just start putting in nasty things in your body that you don't really need.
Well, and that's the thing that surprised me is I've gone through, different, kind of that intermittent fasting and really trying to cut out the carbs from, it's like the difference between I'm hungry and I'm craving are two completely different things, right?
Yeah, it take a while for you to recognize because you're so used to craving means I'm going to go grab something.
Yeah, which really can go back to some of that conversation we had previously around, how do you make sure that your body gets into that ketosis kind of a mindset where that craving many times comes from, I just had that sugar high and now I'm crashing and now I need that another sugar high. So my body goes into a craving mode, not necessarily into a hungry mode.
Yeah.
And so give me a sense too, then, which is really kind of, you talked about that high that comes from that cold water plunge. What are the things around, or is there anything there with, if I heard it right, like your body kind of goes into fight or flight for a little bit and it causes all of that release of endorphins and that kind of stuff. I mean, is that what you're talking about?
That's definitely what I'm talking about. And it's hard to just describe because the first time you do it, it's like, okay, this just stinks. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yep.
And then after a couple times doing it, if you skip one day, you're almost like mad at yourself. Like, I wimped out. I didn't need to do
Yep.
that. And then you don't feel the way you did anymore. And then you're like, oh, that was
That's
why I'm
why.
doing this.
Yep.
That feeling that,
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because even like with the cold shower, which is not to the extent of the plunge, but that it's like I turn the water on cold, and you can't think about it. You have to just step in and do it. And I've been pretty consistent, like every day. But there was like one day in the last probably 4 or 5 months that I took like a regular shower, because I don't know why I was feeling it, and I'm like, that was dumb. Like, you chickened out, and so it's like, no, every day you stick to it. Uh, and so then there's a lot of this stuff though that, if I'm thinking about it right, you can get a lot of this even just from nature, right? You don't have to necessarily like buy a bunch of equipment, plunge yourself into a freezer or that kind of stuff, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah.
talk
I
about
mean,
that a little bit if you would.
so again, you can go on how crazy you are, but I mean, they talk about grounding and getting energy from the earth, and Gary Brecka, a very smart guy, not he's like a bioengineer scientist. It kind of goes into your whole body and worked for an insurance company and figured out when people were going to die. And he talks about all the time, just taking a walk in barefoot, soaking in the the energy from the ground, which actually is the same thing that red light therapy does. So now they're kind of making a way you can do it at home if you're not, you live in Illinois in January, you can't really go barefoot outside.
Yeah, that's a whole
Maybe,
different kind of cold water
yeah,
plunge, right?
yeah,
At the
yeah, yeah. But I mean, just taking a walk outside with your shoes off is going to give you that same benefits from
Well,
red
and
light therapy.
even like walking around, they talked about, if I've read it right, walking around with your shirt off, or more skin exposed to the sun,
Yeah,
and
getting the vitamin D that is again hard to get in Illinois when we're not outside nearly as much.
yeah. Yeah, and a lot of that, as we look at it, I think kind of shifts too as well. Uh, Kind of some of our food sources and what can we choose to eat, and that kind of stuff, which is probably a whole nother episode. But it's like, if you start stacking a couple of these things, and you're like, okay, so I could, like, for me, my 16/8 is, I stop eating at 8 o'clock at night. I start up again at noon the next day, and so really, my body really feels like all I'm doing is not eating breakfast. And at first, it was really kind of hard to do, just because you're in that cycle. But once you break the cycle, it's like, man, I'm not looking to eat before noon.
Yep.
Um, and a lot of times that you have to remind yourself, like the other day, I'm like, oh, crud, it's like 2 o'clock. I haven't eaten yet. I better eat now. And
See, it does happen to you.
yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it's like, okay, so if I start with a couple of these building blocks, maybe I don't have to go full keto, but I could say I'm going to be more intentional about maybe doing an intermittent fast. Maybe not every day. Maybe I do it 3 days a week, and then I'm going to walk 4 or 5 days a week, and I'm going to think about doing maybe a cold plunge or a cold shower or whatever. It's like, if I add some of these things up, all of a sudden I can see a big change in my outlook and
Yeah.
my health, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot like your finances. If you're someone that's constantly spending, 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 and you're used to that, you're going to keep doing that. You start throttling back, you get on a budget, and you start feeling good about your budget, you start seeing the benefits, you're going to kind of stick to it. And I mean, I think diet, exercise, kind of you feel
Hand
the
in
same
hand.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it makes it easier to make the right choice.
Yeah.
And well, I think you said earlier, uh, that as you look at it, you can think, oh, what's one cookie going to do, or what's one, snack that's outside my diet going to do? And really, you can rationalize the same thing with your money. You can rationalize that with everything, right? Oh, well, what's one Starbucks going to do? And next thing you know, it's every day I'm getting Starbucks. And
Yeah. And then when you're intentional about what you're putting in your body too, because don't get me wrong, I love a latte from Starbucks, like the next woman. But you make your coffee at home, you know exactly what's in it. You know
yep,
the calorie count. There's no calories in what I'm drinking. You don't need that. And then you're not buying a $5 latte that, I mean, really adds up if you,
well,
especially
it
if you're
does.
getting
Well,
into
and
retirement and you're looking at, okay, I'm on a fixed budget, and like even Dunkin' Donuts used to be the cheap coffee. It's not cheap
not anymore.
anymore.
No.
No.
Well, and I even just read somewhere, and I haven't looked to see if it's true or not, but like, if you just get a black coffee from Starbucks, that there's sweetener that they add to it. And so, like, you don't even know, am I getting sweetener or not,
Yep.
when you do that. And so, to your point, you kind of, you can be intentional in how, but not only what you're putting in your body, but how you're spending your dollars too. Well, thank you for joining me. This was a
Thank you for
great,
having me.
great conversation. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Retirement Readiness Podcast. If Social Security is on your mind, go to our website, pv-wp.com, and download our 7 Secrets to Social Security now.